Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 19 of Unsung Murder Ballads. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
It's good to have everybody back. This week, we're going to be doing something, I'd say a little different, but it's not really a little different. We're all used to what we talk about here, I think.
Ooh, okay. So what do we got going on this week?
Well, so I'm going to just hit you with some trivia at first, and we're just going to kind of go into all of this because I'm going to play this one out a little differently than I normally do. I'm mixing it up. I really thought initially I was going to keep everything chronological. That would be like my shtick, so to speak. But then I realized that I'm having a lot more fun mixing it up a little bit.
Okay. All right.
So, and then if you figure out what it is, by all means, throw it out there as I'm talking. But each case, we're gonna play games with everybody. Well, unfortunately, the listeners will know what case it is because there'll be a title, but you don't know.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, McDonald's was founded by Dick and Mac McDonald in 1948 and essentially streamlined the restaurant industry with a system that offered, at the time, a limited menu and that had each of those items made exactly the same way. One of the biggest differences was that the items were wrapped in wax paper and served to go in a way that no other restaurant was doing at the time.
Okay. Innovation. Very nice.
Yes, very. I mean, they were smart. When eventually combined with the drive-through, which was first created in Missouri in 1947, American life would be changed forever. For decades, McDonald's has been popular with children and families alike, and you'd be hard pressed to find any American who does not have a fond memory of going to these places with a parent or a family member or something like that.
Of course. I'm pretty sure I have dozens,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Most Americans, and I'm going to argue most of the world at this point, probably has had that childhood memory of going to McDonald's because the food's good. Like, it tastes good. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But in more recent times, McDonald's food has become synonymous with unhealthy eating and capitalism. But that doesn't stop people from eating there. Today, they serve over 69 million people a day globally.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that's more than the population of New York State, New Jersey, and California every single day.
That's mind-blowing.
Think about it. If every person spent just $1, that's $69 million a day.
That's insane.
And we all know they're not spending just $1.
Oh, God, no.
Now, McDonald's also employs over 200,000 people with a turnover rate of roughly 130%, which means that annually they train more people each year than the entire U.S. military does in terms of new recruits.
Oh, wow.
Fucking crazy, right? So why am I talking about McDonald's?
I don't know. Why are we talking about McDonald's?
Well, for the record, this is not going to be one of those technicality episodes like the Tudors were, where I claim the company is murdering people. It's not one of those. So in fact, it's widely known that eating too much processed foods like this company serves is not good for your health. So when someone does choose to eat it, well, they've made that decision. I don't hold McDonald's accountable. I still eat at McDonald's a couple times a year. It does taste fucking good. So no, today we are not talking about McDonald's because we think they're killing people. That's not the case. We're talking about McDonald's because of what happened in San Ysidro, California in 1984.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't know this one.
Not off the bat.
Okay. All right. Well, if you didn't recognize it then, you probably won't recognize it. So, but we're going to move forward anyway.
Okay.
So the city of San Ysidro is located near the Mexican border opposite Tijuana, Mexico, and had in 1984 a population of about 25,000 people. San Ysidro is the home of the fourth busiest land border crossing in the world. It's the second busiest border crossing between two sovereign nations behind Johor-Singapore Causeway. And it's the biggest border crossing in the Western Hemisphere. So basically, a lot of people move between TJ and San Diego all the time, as
Yeah,
we
it
see in
sounds like
films.
it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it in films and TV shows where there's like a long line of cars and people are just sitting there waiting. And then you have like these people walking down the street selling food and water and
Oh,
other random
okay.
knickknacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny when you see it on TV. I've actually seen it in real life. It's crazy. It's a long wait. And that was back in the mid to late 90s. So on July 18th of 1984, literally 39 years ago, plus 1 day from when this episode will publish.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because this is going to publish on the 19th. So it's going to be literally 39 years almost to the day from when this happened that this will publish.
Talk
But
about timing.
you know what? I didn't do it on purpose, but I'm glad it's working out that way. But it's a man named James Huberty decided that he was going to take out his hatred of the world on innocent people over the course of 77 minutes. Now, 77 minutes is the title of a documentary about this case, and it is well worth the watch.
All right. That sounds very good.
Well, I am going to warn our listeners right now. They do show some really graphic things. So if you don't enjoy that kind of thing, don't watch the documentary. So I am going to talk about some of the survivors from that day because their stories are what truly kind of pulls back the curtain on what happened. There's a guy by the name of Albert Leos. He was a new employee at the McDonald's that day and was still learning the job. That day, Albert almost didn't go into work because his friends were going to the beach and they had invited him. But he went to work because it's the responsible thing to do. And we've heard that before with the Molly Bish case.
Oh, of course.
Albert would go on to become a police officer. So he does survive this day. And a lot of people whose names I use do survive because they were interviewed during that documentary. There was a woman by the name of Wendy Flanagan, and she had worked at that McDonald's for only 3 months before this fateful day. She said that one of the things she remembered most from back then was that there were a lot of children at that location because they had one of those play areas built into the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So, which again just makes this particular moment in time horrifying.
That much more terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. Joshua Coleman, who was a child in 1984, had been next door at a place called Yum Yum Donuts with his friends David and Omar. Just before 4 p.m., James Huberty leaves his apartment carrying a 9mm Browning semi-automatic pistol, a 9mm Uzi with the extended barrel, so it had a better range, and a Westminster 12-gauge pump-action shotgun.
That's just way, way, way overkill.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as bad as the Vegas shooter, but yes, I agree, especially with what he's about to do. And his choice of weapons causes a lot of confusion later, but we'll get into that. Huberty lived roughly 200 feet from the McDonald's. Literally, he just picked up his guns and walked right in. And there are reports saying that some people actually saw him walking down the street with the guns, but they didn't have time to do much because it is 1984. There are no cell phones. So he just walks right in. And as soon as he entered, he quickly fired on the manager of the restaurant, a woman by the name of Neva Kane. Neva had recently returned home from her honeymoon.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Wendy had not noticed Huberty until she heard the first gunshot. She saw someone fall, and then everyone started screaming and running. Albert had seen him enter, and when he saw like the shot take place, he started telling everyone to get down on the floor, to like hide, get out of the way. He witnessed Huberty as he opened fire on people trying to leave the building. A woman named Maria Leticia Rivera was also there, and she said that Huberty started shooting through the windows at the children playing in the playground. Her daughter was one of those children. Maria had been sitting with her other daughter at one of the tables, and when she realized that someone was shooting towards her, her other daughter, she ran out into the playground, leaving the first daughter sitting at the table by herself. The one that was sitting at the table was only a year old.
Holy shit.
Maria was able to gather both her daughters together, and she hid under a table trying to protect them. Keith Thomas, who was 12 years old at the time, was sitting at the back of the restaurant near the playground. He also got under a table, but hadn't initially realized that he'd been shot in both arms in that moment. Keith was shielded behind his friend's father, a man named Ronald Herrera. Ronald kept telling Keith to not move. In the end, Ronald would be shot 7 times and ended up saving Keith's life.
Wow. Oh my God. Talk about a sacrifice.
Joshua Coleman and his friends had decided that they wanted some ice cream. So they left Yum Yum Donuts and were crossing the parking lot to enter McDonald's. Someone nearby was yelling at them, but they didn't understand what the person was saying. Joshua had turned slightly to hear the person when he was hit in the side by a bullet. His friend Omar, who had turned completely around, was hit in the back.
Oh.
And his friend David, who had not bothered to turn, was shot in the chest. The three
How
boys.
does he get the brunt of it and not turning?
I mean, he was just the wide target, I guess.
Oh my God.
The 3 boys fell to the ground, and Huberty kept firing at them. Joshua could see car windows near him being shot out, but he was having trouble breathing as his lung was collapsing. The call to 911 happened at 4 p.m., and Officer Miguel Rosario was the first officer on the scene. Rosario had heard reports that had said something about a girl being shot, but he said in interviews later that he never saw a girl that was shot. Now, some of what I'm telling here, I did my best to put them in a kind of as chronological order as I could, but it's chaotic. So I'm pretty sure something that girl that been shot, I'm about to talk about her a bit later, but it didn't make sense to break that part of that story up the way if I was telling it chronologically. So that's why I'm not telling that part yet. Does that make sense?
Right. I mean, the fact that there's any chronological anything to this amount of chaos is.
Rosario, the police officer, when he had heard that a girl had been shot, and that was all he knew as he approached the McDonald's.
That's all they told him?
That's all they told him.
Wow.
So, due to there being more than one McDonald's in San Ysidro, Rosario was first sent to the wrong location. And as he was getting to the first one, he was told, whoops, mistake was made, go to the other McDonald's. This mistake cost the police upwards to 4 minutes of response time. Wendy remembers that the fry-later alarm was going off because everyone was hiding and no one was obviously getting up to stop the machine because someone had dropped fries. So the noise was only adding to the confusion and everything that was going on. Wendy could hear that Huberty had a radio, and initially she thought that he was listening to the police scanners or something, but it soon turned out that he was just playing music as he was shooting at everybody.
That's sadistic.
Reporter Carlos Amezcua, Carlos, was the first TV journalist on the scene. He stood there trying to process how he was going to make sense enough of everything that was happening to cover the story when he suddenly heard the whistling of bullets passing by his head. He dropped to the ground so hard and fast that he actually bloodied his own face on the concrete, and he initially thought he might have actually been shot.
Oh my God, imagine that fear.
Right. I can't even.
But then you have the relief of, oh my God, okay, I just, smashed my face into the pavement. But even still, oh.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing bullets zip past your head is frightening enough. So Officer Rosario, upon arriving at the correct McDonald's, had parked close to the post office because at this point, the only thing he was aware of was that a girl had been shot and she had been brought into the post office. Now, the post office shares the parking lot with the McDonald's. So like from the McDonald's window, you can see a wall of the post office. As he was walking towards the post office and looking around, he saw people hiding behind cars, looking towards the McDonald's. So in confusion, he turns over to look at the restaurant, and he saw Huberty standing there with a long-barreled Uzi across his chest. Huberty saw Rosario and fired on him. Rosario took cover behind a truck as Huberty kept firing at him. He then radios in to the station that he's being shot at. A woman by the name of Marciela Duarte, who had been driving with her husband, had asked him to stop for food because she was hungry. She had suggested that they go for tacos, but for whatever reason, her husband wanted McDonald's. They pulled the car in and parked close to the post office. Marciela exited the vehicle, taking her young daughter into her arms, and then began walking towards the McDonald's. Marciela felt the gunshot, and it felt like a bomb had hit her face.
Oh God.
She clutched at her daughter and was shouting, "My eye, my eye." The bullets kept coming, and her husband told her to give their daughter over to him, and Maricela did. Her husband told her to run, but she ran in a different direction, and he ran towards the post office. Crouching as she moved, Maricela looked down at herself and saw a lot of blood on her arms, her legs, and her stomach. She had no idea how much time passed, but her husband came up next to her, and when she saw that he didn't still have her daughter, she fainted.
Oh yeah, in that chaos and all of that going on and seeing the blood and knowing that your kid's not there with the other person that you love more than anything, no way. I don't blame her at all for passing out.
Now, the husband had actually passed their daughter off to a total stranger that was going into the post office so that he could get back to his wife. But as a result
Wow.
of him doing that, she fainted.
Talk about trust in somebody else. I mean,
I mean, in that situation, what do you do?
no, I would probably do the same thing, but it's still, you don't know who that other person is. You don't know if they're
Right.
gonna do worse or what's gonna happen.
I haven't said it yet, but their daughter had been shot.
Oh,
So, but we're going to get to that later.
okay.
So, Albert, the employee, was inside the building hiding, but occasionally he was peeking out to see what Huberty was doing. Each time that he looked out, he saw Huberty shooting people. Huberty was randomly firing throughout the building. Albert could remember hearing bullets ricocheting off around him and just hoping that the ricochets didn't hit him because there were a lot of metal cabinets and things like that. So, like, as he fired into the kitchen, the bullets were actually ricocheting everywhere. Albert saw him reload and then wait a few minutes, and then he would walk through the restaurant shooting at people, whether they were alive or dead. He would just shoot at people.
Okay.
At one point, Huberty told everyone to be quiet and to keep their children quiet. Huberty claimed that he didn't want to kill the children, even though he had already killed children, but that their cries were giving him anxiety. When the children could not stop crying, Huberty went from table to table, shooting them.
Oh my God.
Maria laid under her table, trying to shield her daughters and praying to God to save her daughters. Calls were starting to come in regarding Joshua and his two friends laying on the ground, bleeding, and officers were still unaware of exactly what was happening inside the McDonald's and how many shooters there may actually be. Joshua Coleman played dead for over an hour next to his dead friends. His friend Omar didn't die right away, and after a few minutes started having death throes, and then he vomited and stopped moving altogether.
Well, that's enough to keep you in therapy for whatever life you have left. Holy crud.
There is news footage of his mother being kept at a safe distance away by law enforcement, freaking out as all she wants to do is go get him, but they're not letting anyone get closer to that building.
I'm surprised they were able to withhold her. I mean, you always hear about a mother's protective instinct. I could see her kneeing a police guard in the nuts and just going after. No, I mean, I know it sounds cliche and movie like, but like, you don't come between a mother and her kids.
No, you're right. But in this instance, she was not able to get through. Joshua had laid there and watched as an elderly couple named Ada and Miguel Victoria approached the restaurant. Now, keep in mind that news clip of the mother is well after all the events we're talking about here. Ada was shot when she tried to open the door. And when Miguel moved forward to kind of check on her, Huberty shot and killed him as well. So you literally have dead bodies laying outside a McDonald's.
Oh my God.
On a busy intersection on a hot summer day.
Now, there's got to be people driving by that see something, right?
Yeah, some people are stopping and some people aren't, and but when they get shot at, they keep moving.
But like, wouldn't I don't know how well the communication was in 1984, but wouldn't you, even if you didn't stop, drive right to the nearest emergency place and let them know a little bit more of what's going on?
It's tough to say. I can't speak for the people that were there, but the police do know. They're trying to get people there.
No, I know, but I mean, like the more because it seems like police have little fragments of information. They don't understand the depth and the horror of really what's going on.
No, you're right. And well, when we're going to talk to about the police response later.
Well, yeah, that 4 minutes was enough to ruin everything.
Oh, it's worse than that, my friend. As other news reporters arrived, the scene outside the McDonald's was chaos. Dead bodies were lying on the ground outside. The windows had huge bullet holes through them. Now, understand that these windows were tinted and they were kind of laminated on each side like a windshield so that they didn't just shatter. So
Okay.
there are big holes, but the glass is still there. And because it's tinted, it's still obscuring a lot of visibility. Officer Rosario stated that while laying prone behind a tree, he saw Huberty and possibly had a shot to take him down. But he refrained because he wasn't sure if Huberty was the only shooter and if there were any hostages inside or not, which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Now, a news reporter even went so far to say that he didn't blame Rosario for not taking that shot because the windows were thick and maybe the shot wouldn't have gotten through. It is worth noting that the police at the time were carrying 38 caliber pistols, and the effective range of a 38 caliber pistol is only 15 to 25 yards.
I was gonna say it's not very long.
No. So Rosario's weapon, even if he did hit him, likely wouldn't have hurt him very much.
No, and then you piss off somebody that you don't want to piss off in that situation.
Exactly. So as much criticism as Rosario may have gotten for not taking a shot earlier, I don't think he would have done much good,
No.
personally. So Wendy had reported that the entire time she was hiding, listening to Huberty's shooting and wondering where the fuck the police were.
Well, yeah.
Maria, who was hiding under the table with her two daughters, said that she had lied and told her children that the bullets were only ice from an ice machine that had broken and that they would feel better if they just tried to fall asleep, mainly because she didn't want them to make any noise. She had been shot in the arm, and one of her daughters had been shot in the leg.
Ooh.
Huberty at one point walked past them and kicked Maria, and thankfully she played dead. And in that moment, her daughters didn't make any noises. So he kept walking.
Smart. Good.
After 30 or more minutes, Huberty becomes aware that there are employees hiding in the back of the kitchen, and he starts making his way towards Albert, Wendy, and others.
Oh shit.
As soon as Huberty saw them, he opened fire. A woman named Margarita Padilla told Wendy to run for the rear exit. As Wendy ran, bullets tore through Margarita's body. Wendy tried to leave through the rear exit, like an emergency exit, but the door was locked. It was locked because someone in the management leadership of that location was concerned that employees might steal food. So the emergency exit was
Are you
locked.
kidding me? Oh, wow.
Fucking ridiculous. Wendy took refuge in a closet that was down like a short flight of stairs into this basement area. And she found that 6 other people were already hiding in there. One of them was holding a baby.
What?
Albert was shot 5 times. But Huberty had run out of bullets and had to return to the front counter to reload.
All
At
right.
that
Now, that was going to be one of my questions is how much freaking ammo did this guy bring with him? I mean, I know he has multiple weapons, but
right, there's
you
no
don't have unlimited ammo.
no, but there's nothing in any of the reports that gave an exact number of how much ammunition he brought with him.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have that. It's not like the Vegas case where we knew he had thousands of rounds.
Right.
So Albert had tried to get up and run, but he had been shot in the leg, so he couldn't stay up. He dragged himself down the flight of stairs and made it to that closet. Wendy could hear Albert outside, having slid all the way to the door, and he couldn't get up to like turn the knobs. He was asking to be let in. Thankfully, Wendy opened the door and everyone pulled him inside. Albert
Wow.
had to bite down on a cloth so that he wouldn't make any noise from all the pain that he was in and give them away for hiding in this closet. Now, what blows my mind about that is Huberty had to know the guy was still there. And I'm sure there were like a bloody drag marks, but I'm going to assume he forgot. I don't know. It's weird. He doesn't go down this flight of stairs, so it's a little weird.
Not to mention, even at a low tone, he's still asking to be let in the freaking door.
Right. You'd think, yeah, he might hear him, but I don't know how far away that closet was from where from Huberty is reloading. And I'm sure he's got other things to worry about because there is a police officer outside, and yeah, absolutely
True.
crazy. Albert even had enough like thought to use his own shoelaces as tourniquets for his injuries. And similar to Wendy, Albert is wondering where the fuck the police are. Police SWAT team finally arrives, and the man by the name of Chuck Foster, who's a sniper with the SWAT team, he
Okay.
arrived at the McDonald's at 4:40, roughly 40 minutes after everything had started. He and his partner slash spotter climbed onto the roof of the post office around 5:02. So another 20 minutes. Like, the fuck? Did he finish his coffee? Like, I don't understand that. How does it take you 20? Whatever. That blows my mind. But so Foster could see the bodies and he could see when Huberty was firing, but not get a really good look at him to the point where he had him in his sights. The windows of the McDonald's were tinted and laminated, as I said. So, and there were holes. So most of that glass was still in place and some of it was sort of reflecting sunlight. So Foster said his ability to see Huberty was very low. Huberty would open fire upon anyone trying to move forward to help the injured that were laying on the ground outside. So no EMTs could get to these people. The wide open nature of the parking lot gave the emergency personnel no cover at all when they tried to approach. So it kind of kept everyone, at a pretty good distance away from the building.
That's really unfortunate.
Now, the doors of the building, they didn't have that same tinting and coating as all the other windows did. So when he fired through those, the glass did shatter. And this was the only area of like full visibility into the restaurant. So Foster kind of moved into position. So that was where he had the best line of fire into the building. And he saw Huberty at the order taking counter, literally sitting on top of it, reloading his weapons. Foster waited until Huberty jumped from the counter and actually started walking towards the broken doors. Huberty had stopped just short of Foster being able to see his head, but he had a clear shot at his chest and torso. So Foster, bam, shot Huberty right in the heart.
Wow.
Officer Miguel Rosario was the first person to enter the building when it was all finished. He said he saw bodies everywhere. One was a set of a family, one parent face up, the other one face down, with a baby between them with a gunshot to its chest.
Holy hell.
When the police
Oh,
yeah, fucking
that's
awful.
no. Why?
And that's some of the footage you can see, like unobscured in that documentary.
Holy
Yeah.
crud.
It's not edited in any way. It is fucking brutal. So when the police entered, they did cuff Huberty's body just in case. They said in the documentary that it was a policy of theirs to always handcuff the suspect, even if they're dead. And my guess is maybe someone in that squad saw a lot of horror movies and knew better. Everyone outside was relieved that it was over, but no one knew the full scope of the devastation Huberty had wrought. Now, the documentary is called 77 Minutes, which is exactly how long his rampage lasted. The crime scene footage taken by police, they go through every room, showing each and every victim and body uncensored. It is incredibly hard to watch. Aid was finally being given to the wounded and the survivors inside that were able to leave the building. Police were concerned that maybe there was a second shooter that was trying to leave among the victims. But survivors, when they did go out, they did talk to the police, and they basically made it clear that there was only one shooter. And the problem was they didn't want to sit there talking to the police. They wanted to find their loved ones. And some of them were just trying to wander off. So this created another chaotic scene because police needed, reports, and they needed to talk to everybody. One man, who was a little boy at the time, had thought all the blood that he had seen inside the restaurant was ketchup. And it wasn't until after he was out of the restaurant and saw everyone covered in it that he realized it was blood. And he said it haunted him for a very long time.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my
Yeah.
God. It's great to be naive in that kind of situation, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess whatever you had to do to survive a situation.
Yeah.
So Maricela, who had been separated from her daughter Carla when her husband Astolfo had run to the post office, and she had run the other way and later fainted when he didn't still have her daughter.
Right.
She and her husband had actually been sent off to two different hospitals, and she didn't even know if her daughter was still alive or not.
Oh, that's horrifying.
Astolfo had given Carla to a nearby woman and ran back to his wife, and the woman had run into the post office and gave it to the nearest police officer because Carla had been shot in the stomach, the back of the head, and the woman told the police officer that the baby was not hers. Can you imagine?
Absolutely not. No way.
So while the woman was trying to help keep pressure on the wound, the officer drove them to the hospital with one hand while he was trying to administer first aid to the baby with the other.
Wow.
Maricela would not know what happened to her daughter for 2 weeks.
Wow. What?
I mean, it's not like the baby has identification on it.
Well, no, but holy crud, 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. She was told that doctors had to cut out parts of Carla's intestines to remove 30 pieces of shrapnel.
Oh,
Carla was actually the first victim to arrive at the hospital, and it's believed by many that this is the number one reason she survived, because the tending doctors and nurses had not yet been overrun with all the other victims. Now, Maricela had been shot in the eye and had to have a fake eye put in. She reported that even after decades, the pain in her eye was so great that even after taking sleeping pills, she was only able to get about 4 hours of sleep a night.
definitely a huge setback and definitely a huge
Yeah,
turnaround. I don't even know I'm blanking on words here because it's just so horrifying.
yeah, it ruined the rest of her life. In the 77 minutes that Huberty terrorized the McDonald's and the surrounding area, he killed 21 people and wounded 19 others. There were approximately 50 people inside the building when he walked in. During that time, he fired over 250 rounds through the windows at people and police outside.
Wow.
There were at the height of this, there were 175 police officers surrounding the building, and Huberty essentially controlled all of them.
Talk about feeling helpless.
I can't believe they didn't do more, but after Huberty was shot, only about 15 people that were in the building walked out alive. Police were criticized heavily for the amount of time it took them to get there at the scene and for how much longer it took them to actually take action. Officers that were on the scene defend themselves by saying that they could hear 3 different weapons being fired and therefore did not know how many shooters there were.
I wish there could have been a better way to have them be able to safely figure out what was going on.
Well, it's easier today with social media. People today, if they were laying under a table, would probably have their phone out and be videotaping some of it, live
Yeah,
streaming
true.
some of it. So I think it's a little different now, but the police would also claim that they could not really see through the windows, but reporters on the scene dispute that, stating that they could see through the windows as Huberty shot people. Police Commander Larry Gore claimed that a majority of the killings took place within the first 10 minutes of Huberty entering the restaurant. Albert, who was working at the McDonald's that day and is now a police officer, disagrees with that statement. Wendy stated that while many were shot but not dead, had the EMTs been able to reach them sooner, many of them could have possibly have been saved. She stated that Huberty would fire, wait, and then it seemed like he got bored and would just walk around and shoot people again. So clearly, police not taking action cost people their lives.
Unfortunately.
Are you ready for the most fucked up thing police did?
Oh boy.
The bodies of the victims were left where they lay throughout the entire night as as police collected evidence, and the relatives of the victims had no fucking idea what their loved ones' fates were.
How's that legal? What?
No idea.
That's abuse of power. That's no. Just no.
So you talked about earlier the video of the mother trying to get to her son. Imagine now having to wait all fucking night.
Yeah, no. Absolutely not.
This case was one of the first times police had to deal with an active shooter situation, and what they learned from this situation led to procedures that are still in place today.
Yes, well, they should be.
Mm-hmm. After this incident, police now know that when there is an active shooter, they need to go wherever he or she is and take them down. At the time in 1984, San Ysidro was the worst mass shooting in the United States. Today, it ranks as the 7th worst mass shooting. The other 6 are: number 6 is the Luby's Massacre in Killeen, Texas in 1991, and the killer there stated that he was inspired by Huberty.
Wow.
Number 5 was the Texas First Baptist Church Massacre in Sutherland Springs, Texas in 2017. Number 4 was the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012. Number 3 was the Virginia Tech Massacre in Blacksburg, Virginia in 2007. Number 2 being the Orlando Nightclub Massacre in Orlando, Florida in 2016. And number 1, which we covered on this show, was the Las Vegas Strip shooting in 2017. I just want to point out that the top 5 have all taken place in the last 15 years or so, as did 5 of the 6 after the shooting. So
yeah, that's absolutely insane as far as statistics go.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've just built up something somehow where people are snapping and wanting to take it out on the public. And I don't understand why. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But I have noticed a weird correlation. Maybe not a weird correlation, but something that I've noticed, that there's a decrease in the number of serial killers that we have, but we have an increase in mass shootings. So maybe because of the technological advances of DNA and things like that, serial killers get caught sooner. So they're just murderers of a single person. And maybe people who might have gone on to be serial killers are becoming mass shooters because they know they'll get caught after the first attempt. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. I also, adding to that, or at least my 2 cents on it, I feel like a lot of people have one isolated incident that they just need to, for lack of a better term, blow off steam about, and then they're done. Like they don't want to or need to drag anything out. They get all they need done in that one mass killing, and then they're done.
You sound like you're an advocate for the purge.
I no, because I would be one of the first to die.
No, you'd be one of those people locked in your house.
Yeah. As if that's going to save me.
Well, it depends. I mean, realistically, no, because I mean, we've talked about this in the past. We haven't talked about it on the podcast, but I wrote a book years ago about the government making murder legal for a day. And the purge got out there before my book got out there. So now I can't do anything with it. But even as I was writing that book, I had to step back and think to myself, it's not going to be all out war on every street corner. A large majority, and I think maybe 90 or more % of people will stay in and just protect themselves and their families and their property. So I don't actually picture it being as chaotic. The cities maybe, but like rural Kansas, I don't see it being so bad. But who knows? Enough. Let's hope we never find that out exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So the day After the shooting, Huberty's wife, Etna, calls the media and she asked for a specific reporter and tells him that she wants to tell her story.
Oh boy.
She tells him how Huberty would fire weapons in their basement and that days before he was calm but outspokenly anti immigrant. This apparently stemmed from the fact that he had to move to Tijuana from Ohio and had lost his job there and was forced to move to San Ysidro. The day before the shooting, Huberty apparently called a mental health clinic seeking help, but somehow they had misspelled his name or something and no one returned his call. Prior to the shooting, Huberty had gone to court to appeal a traffic ticket and the fine was suspended. Personnel at the traffic court remembered that Huberty had waited 3.5 hours there and that he did not seem upset or even impatient. His wife and daughter were with him, and after court, they ate at a different McDonald's and then went to the zoo. According to his wife, Huberty at one point turned to her and said something along the lines of, well, society had its chance. And she just thought he was being odd.
I mean, he did try, at least, to reach out.
He did, and it's unfortunate that those people didn't call him back. Upon returning to their home, his wife went and laid down, being tired from the day that they had had. At some point, Huberty came in and said, I'm going hunting for people.
And that didn't alert her? Like, what?
I mean, if I said that to you, what would you do? Would you really call the police?
Well, not while you're there.
All right, fair enough. So here's some shit that his wife did not share. Huberty was born in Ohio in October of 1942 and had contracted polio when he was 3, which left him with a permanent difficulty walking. In the early 1950s, his father purchased some farmland in Pennsylvania, but his mother refused to move there because it meant moving into Amish country, and she abandoned her family. Huberty would blame God for taking his mother away from him. While at college, Huberty met Etna, his wife, and they were married in 1965. A match made in fucking hell. They would have 2 daughters, Zelia and Cassandra, but their house was plagued with domestic violence, and not just James Huberty beating his wife. At one point, Etna told one of her daughters to assault a classmate.
What?
Yeah. And then she pulled a 9mm pistol on the mother of that girl.
Whoa.
Etna was arrested for this, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Huberty had threatened a neighbor that he would shoot the neighbor's dog if his dog ever shit on his lawn again.
Yeah, they sound like a stellar couple.
Right? And then some point later, when someone complained to Huberty about his own dog damaging their car, Huberty shot his own fucking dog.
What?
Yeah. Huberty and his wife were well known to local police. So at some point while living in Ohio, Huberty had threatened to shoot random people if he ever lost his job.
Precursor.
Yeah. At some point, Huberty did lose his job and he was going to kill himself, but Etna talked him out of it. So how shitty is that moment?
Such a loving wife.
After numerous incidents and accidents, Huberty and his family moved from Ohio to Tijuana and then to San Ysidro. Huberty had lost his job 2 weeks before the shooting. This is after the shooting. Huberty's wife tried to sue McDonald's for $5 million, trying to claim that their food caused her husband to commit the mass shooting. Yeah.
Oh, that's twisted.
She obviously lost.
Well, I would hope so.
And I'm just going to say, I think McDonald's food actually has the opposite effect because, like, after eating it, I just feel like I want to curl up and go to sleep, not start killing people.
Right, exactly.
Maybe the shame of eating McDonald's food might make me want to hurt myself, but not others.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And that, sir, is the crazy case of the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre.
Holy crud.
Crazy, right?
Absolute insanity.
Fucking A. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I'm doing a lot of mass shooter ones, so I think I'm gonna have to veer away from those a little for a little while.
I mean, they are quite intriguing, and especially in this case with the police response and the delay and the 4 minutes that set them back, and being held at bay because they were afraid of having another couple shooters involved. But it just blows my mind with the amount of carnage, especially out in like public view.
What bothers me is you have 175 cops outside. How is it that no one thought, hey, let's get a vehicle big enough to stand behind, and why don't we all start getting closer?
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like no
Yeah.
one thought, hey, get a garbage truck down here.
This is
Like it just blows my mind. And again, I know I'm not in, I wasn't there. I don't know what I would do in those situations. Maybe I wouldn't be so clear-headed, but I just can't imagine anything would rattle me that much that I couldn't think like that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I play too many violent games.
absolute craziness that, it spiraled like that, and that it only took that long, the 77 minutes. I mean, I'm sure for everybody involved, it probably felt like a lifetime.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure it felt a lot longer to those there.
Well, especially those waiting for the police to show up.
Because if you think about it, we have been recording this for less than 77 minutes.
Huh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's it was interesting because I did debate trying to stretch this out to make it 77 minutes, but then I'm like, well, I have no idea how long it'll be after an edit where we take out blunders and things like that, coughing and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know how long it would be, so I didn't try for that. But yeah, we this isn't even as long as those people endured that. But for me, the part that bothers me the most is that they kept the bodies where they were all
I could
night.
not believe that when you said that. Like, that doesn't seem legal.
Especially because, like I said, in this documentary, you can see the police crime scene footage that's not blurred in any way. So they have very good detailed documentation of what's there. Do your chalk outlines or whatever it is that you do and
Yeah.
get these people out of there.
Right. Now, here's a an interesting thought process. What would happen just, hypothetically, if there were wild animals that came out at night and decided to go after the bodies?
Well, I mean, they're in, like, this is a suburb of San Diego.
Yeah, I get it.
So yeah,
I'm thinking,
right.
you
I'm
know,
pretty sure if that was the case, it would have been handled very differently. But I agree. Like, fuck. Why do they don't those bodies didn't need to stay there. You didn't need to put those families through that.
no,
That was
absolutely not.
nuts. And there's a lot more in that documentary. I highly recommend anyone going out and looking that up and watching it. I think it's on Tubi, Tubi. I think that's where I had watched it. And
Okay.
it's hard to watch. And at the end, because I don't go into a lot of the survivor stories after the fact, but the documentary does. And yeah, like the woman whose baby had been shot, she does survive. The baby survives. She's seemed like in the documentary, she seemed very healthy and very well adjusted. But the mother missing the eye, like you can tell what she went through. And it's very emotional. So I do highly recommend watching it. Just be ready for some things that are hard to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brutal. I found myself kind of turning my head quite a bit. It's just awful. So, but yeah, that is the case of the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre. And our 19th episode. So next week will be our 20th episode. We should do something
Yeah. Quite a
should do something
milestone.
special for that.
Yes.
So yeah, so everybody, if you have any case suggestions or just want us to, I don't know, just want to say hi or insult us, whatever you want to do, go on to our Instagram or our Facebook at Unsung Murder Ballads. You can also email us at unsungmurderballads@outlook.com. But yeah, I am Janice Dead,
I'm James and dead.
and we will see you next week.
Bye.